Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, call hello, Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushua, Ba'ashim Rakakwadash. Double honors once again go out to the apostles, bishops, and elders of Great Millstone who deserve double honors. Salutations also go out to fellow Akim out there on the highways and byways, pushing this truth, all honest and sincerity, trying to wake up the remaining hopefully elect. This is Naaman with the DC camp. And this video, all right, for those of you that are for you Jakes out there, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans that are heavy in American politics. And wow, for what reason? You know, I hadn't figured out yet, especially as of late. The last, let's just say, ever since after the Reagan era, really, I mean, the whole history of this thing, but I'm thinking especially since the Reagan era, let's just put it in, a couple of generations, within a couple of generations. But what have you gotten out of it? What have we, as a people, gotten out of any of this shit? Others that have come after us, meaning immigrants and the like, have gotten way more out of this. That should let you know something here. So we're going to address that, hopefully, in this video. Just give you a slight history. And for those of you, especially this last presidential cycle, with the voting of Jim Crow Joe, and it dawned on me that you really never checked into this guy's background. You conveniently, or if you did, you conveniently forgot, all right, the bills that he either wrote or co-wrote, all right, especially what I'm thinking of is the crime bill during Clinton's first term, all right, with the 3 strikes law and all that. And you vote this guy in, but it's like now you have buyer's remorse because you realize far too late, I might add, that Trump, what did or didn't he do that any other president, and that's what this video here is going to address. So here it is. It says presidents, and this is from the Conversation U.S. initially via news break here. It says presidents have a long history of condescension, indifference, and outright racism toward Black Americans. And this is the truth. All right. And it's so sad. It's like that old lapdog that someone just continues to beat and beat. The dog just continues to hang around. And finally, the person that's doing the beating is just wants the dog just to die, Or better yet, another example would be Stalin's chicken. Let's look that up real quick. People look at our people, especially so-called blacks in America, and they just shake their head, but not realizing that we're under curses. We're under curses that identify us as the true Israelites, by the way. All right. Stalin's chicken. There we go. Oh, I hit the wrong thing. Hold on. All right. There we go. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. All right. This is a false anecdote, but I'm just using this as an example, just to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. And this is the Israelites here in America, by and large. It says, during those final days of the collapsing Marxist experiment in the Soviet Union, Soviet novelist Chingiz Aytmatov retold the following story, which has been paraphrased here. On one occasion, so it was narrated, Stalin called for a live chicken and proceeded to use it to make an unforgettable point before some of his henchmen. Forcefully Clutching the chicken in one hand, with the other he began systematically plucking out its feathers. As the chicken struggled in vain to escape, he continued with the painful denuding until the bird was completely stripped. Now you watch, Stalin said as he placed the chicken on the floor and walked away with some breadcrumbs in his hand. Incredibly, the fear-crazed chicken hobbled toward him and clung to the legs of his trousers. Stalin threw a handful of grain to the bird, and it began to follow him around the room. He turned to his dumbfounded colleagues and said quietly, and I want you to pay particular attention to this, because this is the so-called American Negro, Latino, and so-called North American Indian, and in particular, the so-called Negro. This is the way to rule the people. Did you see how that chicken followed me for food, even though I had caused it such torture? People are like that chicken. If you inflict inordinate pain on them, they will follow you for food the rest of their lives. Let's get some scriptures. Why? Because we're under curses. In particular, hold on, let me get another one. All right. But this is as a result of us what? It says blessings for obedience. This is what Moses told our people. All right. If we were to do these things, well, let's just read. Verse 1, and it shall come to pass, Deuteronomy 28:1, if thou shalt hearken diligently. Let's look at that word real quick. Diligently. All right, Strong's H. All right, 8085, Shemai. All right. Obedience. Be content. All right. Give ear. All right. Perceive, obey, regard. All right. I think you understand. All right. If we were to diligently hearken unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh, thy power, not anybody else's, just Israel's, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Most High Yahweh, thy power, would set thee on high above all nations of the earth. 2, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh, thy power. Now let's skip down to 15, because this is the other side of this. Curses for what? Disobedience. Guess what we did? 15, but it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh, thy power, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. And from 16 to 68 is all the curses. But let's go to 48 in particular. Actually, let's start at 43. All these people that have come to this country after us, well, that's part of the curses. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. How long have we been here in this country? See, we are intentionally sabotaged. We were not allowed to generate any wealth, as in generational wealth. That was on purpose. We had built establishments, towns, communities. Even going to a Central Park was one time a settlement for Negroes. They took that. There are towns that were destroyed and now are underneath lakes. So you got Edomites and others, tubing on top of what are our graves. Yes, all out of jealousy and envy and just outright hatred. We were not intended. That's why Micah 2:10 is so prevalent. This is not our rest. It was never meant to be our rest. All right. But it's year after year, decade after decade, especially in this video that I'm doing, talking about all these presidents. These are the leaders, the top executives of the land. And we've just been played and played and played. Continuing with this. He shall, verse 44, he shall lend to thee. That's these immigrants, these people they build up shop, take up shop in our neighborhoods. They're the ones that run this. And thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Most High Yahweh thy power, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. We always want to do what everybody else does. Everybody else was not under this covenant. This is a pact, P-A-C-T, that we made with the Most High, and we broke it. This is why what's happening to us. You can't educate yourself. I don't care how many damn degrees you get from your enemy. It's never going to work. 46, and they shall, these curses, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever, because thou servest not the Most High Yahweh thy power with joyfulness and with gladness of heart for the abundance of all things. We're being made an example. All right? We are being made of an example as to what not to do. You'd be surprised, I think, the people that know this, they're not going to tell you. We're trying to do that. Ezekiel 3rd chapter, that's what we are here trying to do. We're those watchers, all right, for our people. We're the sentries. We're the guardsmen. We're out there on the highways and byways trying to tell you, hey, wake up. This is who you really are. These are the reasons why you're in the condition that you're in. But see, the thing is, 2/3 of our people got to go. They're never going to get it. They were never meant to get it. It's not going to be like what happened in ancient Egypt where everybody came out at the same time. No. But what the rest of that story that everybody forgets, they wandered in the desert for 40 years. All right? Because they had Egypt on the brain. Just like here in America, people got America on the brain. They're not gonna get over it. This is it. Read Numbers 11, chapter 11 through 16. This is what we're going on. As soon as they got out, they started complaining. Well, we had it better while we were in captivity. What are you gonna do, Moses? You know, all that shit. Nigger shit. All right. So let's go back to the article. So, presidents have a long history of well, let's look at some of these words. You know what? I'm gonna have to get my, did I put that app on here? I didn't want to lose that place there, but let's go ahead and do it. Condescending. Let's look up some of these words so you'll understand. Whoops, messed it up already. There we go. All right. Let's see what that means. It says displaying a patronizingly superior attitude. Is that not the so-called white man? Going to his pride. This is how he handles Jake. All right, if you don't know. Condescending. Let's go to Webster's. All right. Showing or characterized by a patronizing or superior attitude towards others. All right. Let's see. Let's go to dictionary.com. All right, we already saw that one. Let's see. It's pretty straightforward. Let's get some. Let's see. I think, let's see. To be condescending is to interact with others in a way that implies that you're superior to them. Another word would be when you have someone that, what's that word? I'm just drawing a blank now. What they call, well, let's just keep going. It come to me. It especially refers to when this is done in an arrogant or patronizing way, meaning when you act as if you're doing someone a favor by supposedly lowering yourself to their level of understanding or intelligence. Wow. Just think, even in the movies, if you can't make that association, just look at some of the movies of how they portrayed, you know, when it came to us, how they dealt with us. You know, condescending is always used negatively and implies that such behavior is insulting to the person or people it's directed towards. Wow. Let's look at some synonyms: arrogant, snooty, highfalutin, high-minded. All right. Disdainful, egotistic, la-di-da, lofty. All right. Snobbish, snotty. All right. Uppish, uppity. All right. So let's go back to and indifferent. Let's look at one up. Being cold. That's what they were to Jake. All right. All right. Let's see. Indifferent. All right. All right. It says without interest or concern, not caring, apathetic. This is how the so-called white man acts toward Jake in general, having no bias, prejudice, or preference, impartial, disinterested. All right. Now, it would be a good thing if it were having no bias or prejudice, but we know that's not the case. All right. An ethically or morally indifferent act. Let's see. Uninspired, especially when it comes to dealing with Jake. Whatever, you know, just, let them be as they are. Fuck them, in other words. All right, that's indifference. All right. Yeah. Okay. Aloof, apathetic, callous, detached. All right, that's everyday life. Try to act like you don't even exist. Disinterested, distant, haughty, heartless. All right, inattentive, nonchalant. I'm sorry, unconcerned, uninvolved. Look at the condition of the hoods. That's done on purpose. All right. So we hadn't even gotten to the first. All right, that's covered almost 18 minutes now. The fury, and this is Teddy Roosevelt here in the caption. The fury over racial injustice that erupted in the wake of George Floyd's killing has forced Americans to confront their history. That's unfamiliar territory for most Americans whose historical knowledge amounts to a vague blend of fact and myth that was only half learned in high school and is only half remembered now. If their historical knowledge is lacking, Americans are not any better informed about the role of presidential leadership and lack of leadership on racial issues. They may have heard that 5 of the first 7 presidents owned slaves, and they know or think they do that Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and we know that was bullshit. But even those tidbits of fact are incomplete. Several other presidents, including Ulysses Grant, owned slaves, and Lincoln, whose Emancipation Proclamation was more symbolic than practically effective, hated slavery but never considered blacks equal to whites. An honest assessment of American presidential leadership on race reveals a handful of courageous actions but an abundance of racist behavior, even by those remembered as equal rights supporters. You have to remember, this is politics here. All right, the ends justify the means. All right, this is bullshit. Revelation 13 and 11. All right. Here's Rutherford B. Hayes, all right, claimed to be a friend of African Americans' rights. He wasn't. Our book, Presidents in Black America, a documentary history, examines the record of the first 44 presidents on racial issues and explores their relationships with African Americans. What emerges is a portrait of chief executives. And have you ever wondered why it's always talking about, when it comes to us, there's always this hyphenated American, you got African, hyphen American. All right. Wow. He says, what emerges is a portrait of chief executives who were often blatantly racist and commonly subordinated concerns for racial justice to their own political advantage. Here are a few examples. Rutherford Hayes, president from 1877 to 1881, claimed to be a friend of African Americans' rights. At his inauguration, he said, a true self-government must be a government which guards the interests of both races carefully and equally, but he cut a shady deal. Now, look this bastard did. He cut a shady deal to win the presidency in 1876 election, whose result was as hotly disputed as the 2000 Bush v. Gore contest. And that deal, he agreed, piece of shit, he agreed to withdraw federal troops from southern states where they'd been protecting blacks from the Ku Klux Klan and white supremacist depredations. Over the next 2 decades, Southern whites drove virtually all black elected officials from office, often by fraud and sometimes at gunpoint, and about 1,500 Southern blacks were lynched. So he just opened up the gates. He said, get them, basically. Never trust thine enemy. William McKinley, president from 1897 to 1901, delivered an inaugural address extolling equal rights and declared lynchings must not be tolerated. However, he remained silent when white supremacists in Wilmington, North Carolina, I was just going to say that before I read this, staged an 1898 coup that ousted all black elected officials and killed at least 60 blacks. His lack of response to lynchings prompted a black-owned newspaper to observe. The Negroes of this country turned with impatience, disappointment, and disgust for Mr. McKinley's fence-straddling and shilly-shallying discussion of lynch law. Theodore Roosevelt, the Rough Rider, president from 1901 to 1909, believed in white superiority while simultaneously advocating against kids for opportunity regardless of race. Double-speaking pieces of shit. In a letter to a friend, he wrote, now as to the Negroes, I entirely agree with you that as a race and in the mass, they are altogether inferior to the whites. Well, I guess so, after all the shit you put us through and your deliberate actions in keeping us from advancing. You, in our arrested development, I should put it that way. All right? Yeah. You not allowed to read and write. All this other shit that came with, and even after this with Jim Crow. Yeah. Well, it started doing this period, but anyway. Oh, this bastard here. Woodrow Wilson. But this is the thing, and you have to understand, even when some of these motherfucking, some things they say, they just happen to be right. And in this caption here, he says, well, I'll just read the whole thing. Woodrow Wilson, president from 1913 to 1921, promised fair treatment for African Americans in his 1912 campaign. But once elected, he defended his Southern cabinet members who segregated workers in federal departments that hadn't been segregated. Writing, it is as far as possible from being a movement against the Negroes. I sincerely believe it to be in their interest. Black Democrat Robert Wood of New York unsuccessfully urged Wilson to reverse the segregation policy. We resent it, not at all because we are particularly anxious to eat in the same room or use the same soap and towels that white people use, but because we see in the separation of the races in the matter of soup and soap the beginning of a movement to deprive the colored man entirely of soup and soap, to eliminate him wholly from the civil service. In a testy White House exchange, Wilson chastised William Monroe Trotter and other black leaders, asserting that segregation is not a humiliation, but a benefit, and ought to be so regarded by you gentlemen. And I must say that part I agree. We should have never We always did better when we did our own thing. But because we thought somebody else's grass is greener, and this has been the sole thing with Israel throughout, down through the ages. All right, wanting to be like the enemy, wanting to associate with the enemy. We were supposed to be separate. That's one of the definitions of holy, to be separate. I always, before I even knew anything about the truth, used to wonder how would it be if we were as a people like the Amish, not even knowing what I was really, you know, asking for. Why aren't we like that? Why don't we separate ourselves from this shit? You know? Continuing on, it says, if your organization goes out and tells the colored people of the country that it is a humiliation, they will so regard it. This is Wisdom talking about this, right? The only harm that will come will be if you cause them to think it is a humiliation. It's a devil for you. Franklin Roosevelt, FDR. Boy, so-called blacks just love this motherfucker. There's a picture in, I think it's Time Life magazine. After this motherfucker died, they got this Jake playing a, what is that thing? Is it a harpsichord? And he's crying, and you got this white woman off to the side looking at this motherfucker like, why the fuck are you crying? I wish I could, let's see if I can pull that up. This is Jake, boy, just gone, just, let's see. How am I gonna word this? Let's see if it'll come up. Oh, let's see. Yeah, here it is. Oh, right to it. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. Look at that. And look at that Edomite over there. Look at that. So this was April 13th. Chief Petty Officer Graham Jackson, all right, mourning that devil. This is Jake. America. All right. Stalin's chicken. All right. Oh, man. Anyway, so now we're at FDR, president from 33 to 45, was widely admired among African Americans. While his New Deal programs did not benefit blacks and whites equally, nope. Blacks did receive benefits, but FDR's actions were always guided by his need to appease Southern segregationists in Congress to pass his other agenda items. And his attitude could be condescending, as when he met with black leaders about integrating the military. He advised a gradual approach, particularly with the Navy. We are training a certain number of musicians on board ship, the ship's band. There's no reason why we shouldn't have a colored band on some of the ships, because they're darn good at it. Entertainment, right? Political calculation has always been at work in presidential dealings with African Americans, from George Washington to Donald Trump. But often, those dealings also reflected condescension, indifference, racial bias, and outright racism in chief executives who took a solemn oath to serve all American citizens equally. But do they? Hell no, they never meant to. All right, but here's Jake. Always, and we're the only ones that don't get anything. Of all the people in this country, all right, even more so than the so-called damn Jews with that fake bullshit. All right, after all this, where's this something for us? You know why? Because they never intend to, and they never will. So all you that is pushing for this damn reparations, it ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna work. But as what we always say, this is the only reparations we want right here. All right. This is Revelation 13. Start at 9. All right. It says, if any man have an ear, let him hear. Because this devil, he's never going to change. All right. He's not meant to. He is the wicked. This is who's running your world. This world was given into the hands of the wicked. Job 9:24. All right. He is the wicked, per Malachi 1st chapter, verses 1 through 4. All right. You have certain characteristics, and once you read the Bible, this is what you have to do. Now, who is acting like this? Who does this represent? There are only, and ever were, 18 nations coming from Noah's sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. There's only 18 nations, including Israel. All right, all this, well, it's got 100 and, no, that's bullshit. That's nothing but confusion. Just like with his renaming the nations. That's so he can try to hide. He is a nation of Edom, all right? Descendants of Jacob's brother Esau. The hatred between us two, all right? He sold his birthright. He's trying to get it back. He's not going to get it back. That's what it's all about, not the color of your skin. Our people are so distracted with that bullshit. All right, you can't see what's really actually going on. That's what we're trying to do, is let you know what's going on by breaking down the scriptures the right way. But like I said, 2/3 of our people got to go. They were never intended to get it. They are purposely being blinded. All right. So, verse 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Not, I forgive you. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. This is what we're praying for. All right. And we know by these scriptures that this is going to happen. The book of Obadiah tells you everything you want to know about this white man and how it's going to end for him. All right, that one chapter is so powerful, culminating in verse 18, which you can read through the whole thing. I think it's 21 verses in that chapter. All right. He's out of here. He's the only nation on this planet that is going to be done away with. Exterminated. Ironically, by what he said he went through already, when you understand what a righteous burning is. All right, that's how you're gonna go out. So hey, with that, let's go back. Again, this has been history. Presidents have a long history of condescension, indifference, and outright racism toward Israelites here in America, so-called Black Americans. All right. Hey, so with that, until the next video, Shalom.